The sleepy beach town of Hossegor has once again woken up for the running of the Quiksilver Pro. With a history of being a pivotal event in the course of a world championship, it's only fitting that the world title race has shifted more than the constantly changing sandbanks of one of Europe's best surf destinations. Mick Fanning has finally earned the Jeep Leaders jersey after winning 2 of his 3 final appearances this year. Adriano de Souza did not give it up quietly and is within 2,000 points of taking it back. The rest of the top 5 are still within striking distance, but are running out of events to overtake the 2 veterans. A similar scenario has developed with the women, as Courtney Conlogue and Carissa Moore have gone back and forth all year with the Jeep Leaders jersey, changing between them 3 separate times. Courtney is coming off her 3rd event win of the year in Cascais and carries the momentum with the Jeep Leader jersey on her back. The tour has begun its home stretch, and the banks of southwest France are shaping up for a world title showdown. The Quiksilver Pro France starts now.
Greetings from the southwest of France. We're here for the Quiksilver and Roxy Pro, stop number 9 on the Samsung Galaxy World Surf League Championship Tour. And it is a windy old morning down here in the southwest of France. Ronnie Blakey here. You're watching Dawn Patrol, and we have a big show for you. First up, we're going to be getting to the call and checking out the Surfline forecast. We're going to get an update on the title conversation. Big story here, of course. Courtney Conlogue with an opportunity to steal her first world title if Carissa Moore is knocked out with a 9th place finish and she wins the event. So that's an interesting conversation to get into. A little later on, we'll be having a look at the men's world title race and the Jeep leaderboard with Martin Potter and Joe Topel. And then later on in the show, Rosie Hodge and Ross Williams will give their fantasy tips for you, so stick around for that. But right now, it is my pleasure to introduce Ross Williams and Pete Mell this morning. Ross, good to be back down here. This event, always such a pivotal contest in the title race.
Yeah, it's I know it's great. I know it's the first day of the waiting period, but I think it's always great how everyone kind of settles into the region here in France, and this is one of the key events for the whole year where people soak in the atmosphere. There's wine, there's cheese, there's coffee. Everyone's just vibing on coffee. Pete, I know you had a couple of cups.
I'm good.
Fired up. Pete. A couple of big stories. Of course, Kelly Slater made mention after his disappointing result at Trestles that he might flag the European League. He's actually here. He could be a big spoiler in the men's title race, but Stephanie Gilmore, she's making a return to competition, Pete.
Yeah, it's good stuff to have her back in the draw. You know, she's up against Carissa Moore in the first round, so that'll always be that interesting first heat for her with a jersey back on. I think there'll be some nerves, there'll be some rust, but ultimately we'll get to see her surfing good again. Well,
a couple of interesting wildcards and some replacements also, but Dane Reynolds, as a Quiksilver rider, gets the call up to surf in this contest once again, and he's had some success here in the past.
Dane is very dangerous here. I believe this is his 4th event this year, so you never know. He could do some damage and climb the ratings a little bit, but pretty awesome gesture here. He's already posted this on Instagram. He's going to donate whatever prize winnings he makes here to one of his favorite charities. I know he's a big animal lover. He's got a couple of classic dogs at home, so he's got a close connection there, Pete.
He's got it all. And you got Julian, who, wow, look at that rock on her finger. Good stuff going on in Paris, I guess, for Julian.
Yeah, Julian Wilson popping the question to his girlfriend Ashley. She, of course, said yes. And yeah,
that's awesome.
The deal is done. Sorry, ladies, Julian's off the market, but he needs to stay focused on this title race because he's in a pretty good pretty good position to have a run at it in these last 3 events. Well, let's find out if we're going to get heats underway on day 1 of the Quiksilver Pro. For that, we'll check in with Strider Wozalewski and the Commissioner, Kieran Perro.
Good morning. Thanks. Down here with Kieran. Kieran, pretty strong southwest wind this morning. How are we looking for conditions?
Yeah, you can see probably behind us right now, it's onshore and pretty miserable. It's blowing really strong. It has been for most of the night. The swell's also really small. Everyone's struggling out there. It's supposed to build through the day, but this wind's going to remain onshore. So we're off for the day. We'll come back tomorrow morning, and we're hoping that the size is definitely going to ramp up, but we're just hoping that wind doesn't affect it too much tomorrow.
And in the forecast for the coming days, how many swells are we looking at?
Yeah, there's multiple swells right now in our little short 5 to 6 day window. There's a couple coming in from the northwest. That's a better direction for here. And then there's the Hurricane Joaquin. So that's going to come across, and really, right now, it looks like it's going to be enormous. So if that happens, we'll be crossing our fingers it doesn't blast us apart. But that's going to change. It's still a way out, but we've definitely got enough swell in this kind of 5 to 6 day window to get underway.
Well, there you go. Swells are lining up. Back to you, boys.
Thank you, Strider, and thank you, Kieran Perro there. Pete?
Yes.
Not looking that great out there this morning, but no. The Surfline forecast, you've been keeping an eye on it. A lot to be positive about.
Pretty easy call this morning, of course, but Joaquin, we'll call it Joaquin instead of Joaquin. But Joaquin is there, you see on the left of your screen, moving up into the coast. That's always good. When you get this time of year, you get those tropical depressions that move up and then get sucked into low pressure, and that's what creates a flame, a fire. You get a lot of wind with that. Generally, we see what's going to happen here is going into tomorrow, we've got an increase in swell, but there is a solid week of good surf. And then there's actually another pulse behind, and so we've got a lot of swell to utilize for both the women's at the Roxy Pro as well as the men's. It's going to be a little bit of a piecemeal. You guys have noticed it's pretty warm for this time of year. Usually you start to get a little chilly, and when you have that chill is when you get those nice crisp offshore winds in the morning. Right now we don't have that. We got this really southerly flow. It's warm and muggy, and ultimately we're going to deal with these winds because of that. That warm weather. It's just there'll be moments where it'll be glassy and cool. The wind's supposed to back off this afternoon, but we don't know if it's going to be enough. Ultimately we're just saying no, it's not, and that's why we're not running today. But tomorrow we're gonna have some more surf, but we're gonna have more of this wind as well. So again, we're just hopefully that it backs off. And winds are one of those things that forecast wise, it's hard to really put a finger on it. So we'll just wake up in the morning and keep checking it. There's swell though.
There is swell, and could potentially fill in. You might be able to get the tow board out there, Pete. Stay with us after the break. We'll
Towing's
be talking
dead, Ronnie. Towing's
world
dead.
title race with Courtney Conolog and Chris Moore. Welcome back to Dawn Patrol. Well, Courtney Conlog sits on top of the Jeep leaderboard on the women's side and has an opportunity to claim a world title here if she wins the contest and Carissa Moore finishes with a 9th. Let's get a little bit of a head check on Courtney coming into stop number 9.
I think the first time I put on the yellow jersey, I was actually excited. I put so much time in, so much work in order to get there, and I knew I could do it. It was just a matter of being able to apply it all in those 30 minutes. Having it for such a short period, it was a bummer, but it was good to feel that, having it and then have it taken away from you and just feel that disappointment. It just stoked the fire for this European leg, and I love it here. I'm going into it just discovering, but adapting and learning. Then you have her side where she's like, I've been here before. I know what to expect. I'm waiting for you, Court. It's awesome to just be in this race and feel what it feels like to be in the mix and be able to have those exchanges, just switching back and forth and seeing who ends up at the top of the end. I don't like losing. I hate the feeling of a loss. And I just want to win every heat I can.
And she's been doing a fantastic job of actually accomplishing that dream to win every heat, and she's in a fantastic position at the moment, and she's just so feisty. Pete, you were down in Portugal, pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, and there was a couple heats where she had to fight back, and when she did that with great form and didn't panic, you know, and in that final to have that win that she, you know, ultimately she took the Jeep leaderboard before, or sorry, so Jeep rankings lead before she stepped into that final. But that win added 2,000 more points, and it's a huge difference. Those wins are so critical at this point in the year.
Well, what I like, Ronnie, about Courtney and the way she approaches competition is she's maybe one of the most honest athletes on tour for both the men and women. She doesn't try to put up a front like, hey, I'm going to take you down and posture. I think she's really honest with herself, where her weaknesses are, her strengths, and she has a lot of healthy respect for Carissa. All the women do. So I think that'll help her digest situations, those pressure-packed moments. She's going to be comfortable in her own skin.
In my opinion, this is the event where
for sure.
Courtney's got to make more ground on Carissa, because if you look at the contests that she's won this year and dominated, they're kind of the scrappier events on tour. The events that you really have to adapt to in order to chase down those results. Margaret River over in Brazil, and then again down in Portugal, it was kind of in marginal conditions, whereas Carissa, she's been unbeatable when it comes to those world-class locations.
Carissa and Maui, that is going to be really tough. So you're right. She has. There's only 2 events left, Pete, right? There's here in Maui, and Carissa's going to be really strong there. So for Courtney, this is a big event.
Yeah, and you look at the results there of Carissa. She has those 2 nights, can't afford any more throwaways. But if you take away the throwaways, you talk about, you know, they have 10 events, throw 2 away. They're neck and neck. I mean, literally neck and neck. It's so close to you know. And again, so these next 2 events are very critical. You know, for Carissa, she cannot have another 9th. And you know, if that's the case, if we see a 9th out of Carissa, and then all of a sudden Courtney spells that one, ooh boy.
It's interesting, isn't it? These last 3 events, just how that lead has changed. We saw Carissa have a bit of a meltdown through the back end of last season. Is that happening again?
I don't think so. And, you know, here there is a chance for Courtney to win the world title here, Pete. You know, if she wins and Carissa gets 9th, she's going to take it down. So we're getting down to the fun part of the year. But for Carissa to get 9th here, I just can't see that happening. In fact, I really think she's going to be confident in the fact that she's got those 2 nights, because she's going to see that gap, that little smoke screen there where she can jump.
And a spoiler in the title race, of course, could be Stephanie Gilmore. And at the press conference yesterday, Pete, she actually said she wants to keep that world title group as small as possible. She doesn't want to let another name in. So she's
that's an interesting
looking
thing
to
to
take
say.
Courtney down.
You know, I mean, that's an interesting thing to say, because ultimately, you know, there's that in her mind right there. She's a competitor, and she puts on a front like she's a sweetheart girl, but as soon as she gets that jersey on, woohoo!
Competitive.
A bit like yourself, Pete.
Oh yes,
You played a sweetheart. We're going to take a quick break. We'll have some more.
I thought you were going to talk about my competitive
on the
nature.
men's side with Judd Appel and Martin Potter up next.
Good morning and welcome to the southwest of France. You're watching Dawn Patrol for the Quiksilver Pro and the Roxy Pro. Stop number 9 on the Samsung Galaxy Championship Tour. The lineup is shredded with onshore winds and the contest has been called off for the day. As we say a big good morning, Joe Trappell alongside 89 world champ Martin Potter.
Good morning, Joe.
Potts, as you know, there's a lot of great history here in France with the Championship Tour. Recent memories here, we think about John last season doing work in shifty conditions. Sometimes it's a 2-foot rip bowl. We've seen big airs from Medina, the king of the Groms event he won a couple years before out here in France. You got to witness that go down. But also back in your day, you're very busy with the jersey on when the France leg would come to town.
You know, this traditionally was probably the moving part of the year. This is where world titles were won and lost. Lacanau, Hossegor, Biarritz. I mean, it was an important leg of the tour. You know, you get the ball rolling here, and that sort of flows you into the rest of the year. And world title races were won and lost here, and I think that theme hasn't changed. I mean, you look at, you know, this year is going to be very crucial, i.e. with Mick Fanning and Adriano de Souza. Those young guys have got to try and catch them.
Speaking of Mick Fanning and Adriano de Souza, we had them match up in the final at the Hurley Pro in Southern California at lower trestles. De Souza stayed consistent, got past Toledo. Fanning had some tough names on his side with Slater and Medina. They went head-to-head, and Fanning made no mistakes.
You know, that would have been a very sweet victory for Mick Fanning. As you said, had the toughest side of the draw, you know. Adriano de Souza, kind of a slippery slope there. Maintaining that yellow jersey was difficult. Everyone was having a shot but failing. And then, you know, going into that final, obviously the two guys that are leading the race, what a great way to finish that event off. I mean, Mick Fanning looking like super sharp. He's coming into a part of the year where he's one of the most winningest surfers here in France. So to take him down here is going to be difficult. Going into Portugal, he's won there before as well, and he's won world titles at Pipeline. So this is where these guys have got to try and catch these veterans.
What a scary place for Fanning to come into an event where he's won 4 times in France, now world number 1, getting the yellow jersey off of de Souza. As you check out the Jeep leaderboard, number 1 in the world, de Souza behind him there. Yep. Owen Wright still in 4th. You're seeing some usual names. Kelly's still hanging on in 6th, and he is here. Does he still have a chance to win a world title?
Well, I think mathematically maybe not. You know, I think we spoke to him in California, and he was kind of iffy coming here. He's here. The thing that's really surprised me was Gabriel Medina. I mean, he's come out of nowhere. Everyone was saying how he's having such a bad year, number 7 in the world right now. What if he goes back-to-back? I mean, that can be done.
Huge. Well, number 8 in the world, Jeremy Flores has had one of the best comeback stories in the last couple of seasons on tour. A whole new headspace, brand new boards from JS. It's really making a huge difference for him. Remember, he hurt his head in Indonesia doing an air. Is that going to stop his momentum? It actually fired him up, and he took his 2nd CT win in Tahiti.
Absolutely right. I mean, you know, I think what it did was it made sure that he didn't make any mistakes. He couldn't afford to fall over there at Chopu. His wave selection was spot on. You know, it's a new and improved Jeremy Flores. I think boards have made a big difference in that for him. I think he's found that confidence that he's been looking for. That's a Jeremy of old. I mean, this guy's a top 10 surfer in all aspects of the game. You know, you look at the aerials, the big waves, the barrel. I mean, when he was here as a grommet coming into this event, he was beating guys like Mick Fanning and Kelly Slater, so it's going to be interesting.
Well, the hard part for me is when you pull up the stat record for Jeremy Flores competing on his home court, whether he's in the top 10 or in a slump, he's had trouble in this event. With 8 starts, he hasn't cracked round 3.
Yep.
We talk about hometown pressure a lot. Some people don't have it, like Jordy Smith winning in J-Bay a couple times. Remember the Tiago story in Portugal?
Yep.
Michelle mentions it in Tahiti, where something changes when the tour comes to town.
I think it's different, Jeremy, though. You know, I think he's in a really good headspace. He's safe for next year. I think that's a lot of pressure that probably was coming into play. Let's hope that doesn't work against him this year. I think we're going to see Jeremy fire.
Big clash for Jeremy Flores in the opening round. He'll be taking on John Florence when this thing does get underway. Now let's get some local knowledge with Jeremy Flores in the GoPro Breakdown.
It's crazy because you never know what to expect. Even me, I mean, I live here in France, in Hossegor. I could be training in this one bag knowing there's a comp coming, but next thing you know, there's a swell and a week after it's gone. There's 2 peaks. When it's small, there's a little fun little trestles right and left peak. It's called the Cunu. 300 meters north, there's an outside bank called the Guardian, which is exactly the same as the bank last year. I'm pretty confident on these banks. They look pretty good, and the swells that's coming looks pretty good too. This event's been well known for the barrels. Every year we get crazy barrels. You know, we had some really good memories of everyone getting the biggest tubes. But you know, this is the most rippable banks too when it's small. So any condition is going to be exciting to watch. Those 2 banks I just explained, we might not even be surfing them in the comp. Who knows? If there's a better bank, more north or more south, then we're out there. For me, I mean, this is the hardest event on tour. That's what makes it so special too.
Welcome back to Dawn Patrol. It is time for us to tap into the minds of Ross Williams and Rosie Hodge to get some fantasy surfing tips. Rosie, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Welcome back, Ronnie. Good morning, Ross.
Let's get stuck into it because this is such a crucial event for everyone playing fantasy surfing. Everyone wants to make some ground up on their buddies. Everyone wants to climb to the top of the ratings themselves. So give us some good insights. Give us some good tips. I need help.
Here we go. I mean, just looking at this event, you guys touched on it earlier. It's so crucial for this part of the year. There's so many shake-ups with world title standings as well as requalifications. And, you know, looking at Courtney's form in Portugal, I had to start the girl. She is on an absolute roll. And then Joanne DeFay, I mean, she's from Reunion Island, spends a lot of time here in France. So I figured, you know what, she'd feel like this is home. Dimity Stoyle, I'm giving her another go. I feel like she is on a roll. But also Stephanie Gilmore back in competition. You've got to pick her as someone to really shake things up, especially like we mentioned, coming up against Carissa Moore in heat number 1 of the Roxy Pro. I mean, you've got to think about that potential for things to really, you know, blow up. And I feel like, you know, whoever gets the start in that heat, if it's Carissa, she could go on a roll. But if Stephanie gets that little bit of taste of competition, she could be really dangerous.
Can't wait to see Steph Gilmore perform. Let's hear from Steph now. She was at the press conference last night.
You know, it's been really fun to watch the girls and all of the drama and excitement of the world. You know, the number 1 rankings change all the time, and it's really cool. I haven't really experienced that before, so it's something different, but you know, it just made me realize how much I miss it, and so I thought I was going to make it to lowers, and then I thought I was going to be fit for Portugal, and it just didn't really happen. So yeah, I'm feeling really good at the moment, and I'm definitely looking forward to surfing again. It'll be strange to be in a heat because I haven't surfed on for like 6 months, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Great to see her back, and can't wait to see what part she can play in the title race going to these last 2 contests. Now, Ross, you've got some pretty interesting intel for the viewers out there on your dark horse pick for this event.
Yeah, I think Sebastian Zietz is going to be so fired up. We saw that unfortunate interference he had with Michel Perez at lowers, and you know, I was on that heat, Ronnie, and that was easily the best surfing I've seen from him this year, maybe ever in a jersey. So I hope, Seabass, you have that board on ice because it looks magical. So I think, you know, just that whatever it was he found there, it was definitely the next level for him. So I think he could be there for the dark horse. You know, you never know. Andy Irons did really well out here in France. He's got that same vibe being brought up on the North Shore of Kauai. His type of surfing really matches this punchy beach break, so it'd be cool to see him get the win.
He's such a good scrapper too. He's always on the inside during free surfing sessions, picking off horrible waves and turning them into something pretty special.
And the other cool thing is there's a new little mini rivalry between him and Michel Perez. You know, Michel looked like a cat with a feather hanging out of his mouth after that. I don't think he felt really guilty, so it'd be cool to see a rematch.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Sebastian Zietz in great form. Let's see if he can get a spot on the tour for next year. Well, that's it for today, but make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Dawn Patrol. Tom Curran will be joining us on the show.